Have you ever felt like your life was stuck in a waiting room, where time seems to move but nothing in your situation changes? You pray, you hope, you plan, yet it feels as though heaven is silent. You see others moving forward, receiving answers, living breakthroughs. And you begin to wonder if maybe God has forgotten about you. But what if the waiting is not a punishment? What if it's part of a divine design meant to prepare you for what's coming next when God makes you? Wait, it's not because He has abandoned you. It's because He's working in a realm you cannot see. His delays are not denials. They are divine pauses meant to align your heart, your faith, and your purpose with His perfect will. God's way of timing is different from ours. We are bound by minutes and hours, but He operates in seasons. What looks like delay in your timeline may actually be divine precision in His. Every moment you spend waiting is like the soil that nurtures a seed before it breaks through the ground. When you plant a seed, you don't dig it up every day to check if it's growing. You trust that beneath the surface, life is forming. The same is true for your faith journey. God is growing something beneath the surface. Something that will one day burst into life when the season is right. Waiting reveals the true condition of your heart. It exposes whether your faith is rooted in God's promises or in your own expectations. It's easy to believe when everything goes as planned, but faith becomes real when you have no visible reason to keep believing. In that quiet space of uncertainty, trust either deepens or disappears. God often allows waiting not to test your patience, but to strengthen your belief that He is faithful even when nothing seems to change. Because faith that cannot endure waiting is not faith that can carry blessings. The strength of your trust is measured not by how you act when things are easy, but by how you stand when things are silent. Sometimes God delays blessings because He knows you are not yet ready to handle what you are asking for. A premature gift can become a burden. He sees the details you cannot, the relationships that need to form, the character that needs to grow, the lessons you must learn. If He gave you everything right away, you might receive it without the maturity to sustain it. The waiting builds wisdom. It shapes your heart, teaching you humility, endurance, and gratitude. What feels like a long pause is actually divine preparation. When the promise finally comes, you will understand why it had to take time. Look at the story of Abraham. God promised him a son, but 25 years passed before that promise was fulfilled. In those years of waiting, Abraham learned to trust God more deeply, to depend on Him completely. Had the promise come instantly, Abraham would have had faith in results, not in relationship. God's delay taught him that true faith means believing even when you don't see progress. Similarly, Joseph waited years in prison before becoming a ruler in Egypt. The time he spent in waiting refined his character, teaching him leadership, patience, and forgiveness. God was not ignoring him. He was preparing him. Waiting also has a hidden blessing. It slows you down enough to hear God's whisper. When we rush through life, we often mistake movement for progress. But in stillness, you begin to recognize His voice more clearly. You realize that what you need is not just the answer, but the intimacy that grows in the waiting. The silence teaches you to listen not with your ears, but with your heart. It's in those quiet spaces that faith matures and your relationship with God deepens. There will be moments when you cry out in frustration, when your prayers feel unanswered, when the waiting feels endless. But even then, God is working. Just because you can't see progress doesn't mean nothing is happening. Remember, the most important growth happens underground, unseen but essential. You are not being delayed. You are being developed. The waiting is not wasting time. It is transforming you into the person capable of carrying the blessing ahead. Every story of greatness in the Bible was shaped by waiting. David waited years to become king. Moses waited 40 years in the desert. Even Jesus waited 30 years before beginning his ministry. Waiting is not a detour. It's part of destiny. It's God's way of ensuring that when the door opens, you'll be ready to walk through it. So when you find yourself asking why God makes you wait, remember that. He's not withholding blessings. He's aligning your life for them. You may not see it now, but one day you'll look back and realize that the waiting was the most powerful chapter of all, because it was there that your faith grew roots deep enough to weather any storm. God's timing may not follow your schedule, but it is always perfect. And when his plan finally unfolds, you will understand that every second of waiting was worth it. There are moments in life when silence feels heavier than words. You pray, but the heavens seem still. You cry out for direction, but no answer comes. Days turn into weeks, weeks into months, and all you hear is quiet. In that silence, doubt starts to creep. You begin to wonder if God is listening, if your faith has somehow failed, or if you've been forgotten. But what if that silence is not a sign of absence, but a sacred space of growth? What if, in those quiet moments, God is closer than he has ever been, watching, shaping, and strengthening you from within? Faith in the silence is one of the deepest forms of trust. It is the kind of faith that doesn't depend on feelings, signs, or visible results. It's the kind of faith that stands firm when there's no proof, no comfort, and no clarity, only belief. When God is silent, he is not ignoring you. He is teaching you to depend on his presence, not his performance. We often want immediate answers, visible signs, and clear outcomes, but if God gave us everything instantly, faith would lose its purpose. Faith grows in the unseen. It's easy to believe when prayers are answered quickly, but real faith is built when you continue to believe after you've heard nothing. That silence is God's way of inviting you into deeper intimacy. A place where you don't just trust what he does, but who he is. In moments of silence, we are called to shift from seeking outcomes to seeking understanding. God's silence is not rejection. It's refinement. He uses silence to develop your spiritual hearing, to help you recognize his voice beyond the noise of the world. You begin to learn that faith is not about always hearing from God. It's about knowing he's still there, even when you don't. Think about how the stars shine brightest when the night is darkest. In the same way, your faith shines brightest when life is quietest. Sometimes silence is the space where God's greatest work begins. When you can't see his hand, he's still guiding your steps. When you can't hear his voice, he's still whispering peace into your soul. The absence of sound doesn't mean the absence of action. In the story of Lazarus, Jesus waited 4 days before showing up. Not because he didn't care, but because he was working towards something greater. His delay created the stage for a greater miracle. Likewise, when God is silent in your situation, he may be setting the stage for something you can't yet imagine. Silence teaches surrender. It brings you face to face with the limits of your control and the depth of your trust. It asks you to let go of the need to understand everything and simply believe that God's plan is unfolding perfectly even when you can't see the full picture. This kind of trust isn't passive. It's powerful. It's a quiet strength that says, even when I hear nothing, I still know he's faithful. In that place, faith becomes not a feeling, but a decision. A decision to keep walking, keep praying, and keep believing despite the silence. God's silence also reveals what's inside us. It tests the sincerity of our hearts. Do we follow him only when we receive answers? Or do we stay faithful when all we have is hope? The waiting room of silence separates shallow faith from steadfast faith. It purifies motives, stripping away the need for signs. and leaving only the desire to know Him more deeply. It's in that hidden space that spiritual maturity begins to form. Sometimes God uses silence to redirect you. When you can't hear Him, He might be leading you to stillness so that you stop chasing noise and start listening differently. It's in silence that He often shifts your focus from your problem to His presence, from your fear to His faithfulness. The silence trains your spirit to recognize His peace in the midst of uncertainty. You begin to realize that faith isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a calm assurance that God is in control even when life feels out of control. There's a beauty in those silent seasons once you stop fighting them. They become sacred, a time of quiet transformation. When you stop demanding answers and start embracing stillness, your heart becomes a sanctuary for God's whisper. You begin to notice subtle signs of His care, the unexpected encouragement, the inner peace that doesn't make sense, the strength to face another day. That's how God speaks in silence, not through thunder or lightning, but through calm assurance that He has not left you. So even when heaven feels quiet, do not let fear take root. Let the silence deepen your faith, not destroy it. Keep praying, even when words feel empty. Keep believing, even when you feel nothing. Keep standing, even when you feel weak. Because faith in the silence isn't about knowing what's coming next. It's about trusting that the one who promised never to leave you is still right beside you, even when He doesn't speak. Healing rarely looks the way we imagine it. We expect it to be quick, clear, and conclusive, like a wound that closes neatly after being treated. But real healing, especially emotional and spiritual healing, is often slow, messy, and unpredictable. It's not a straight path. It's a spiral, one that brings us back to old pain just when we think we've moved past it. Yet, each time we return, we see it differently. That's how growth happens. Not by escaping our pain, but by facing it again and again until it no longer controls us. Healing is not the absence of pain. It's learning how to hold your pain without letting it define you. There are seasons in life when your soul feels fractured, when the person you used to be feels distant or lost. You try to move forward, but the weight of what you've been through keeps pulling you back. Maybe it's heartbreak, betrayal, loss, or the quiet ache of disappointment. Whatever form it takes, pain leaves traces that cannot simply be erased. But healing begins the moment you stop fighting what happened and start allowing yourself to feel it fully. Suppressed emotions don't disappear. They wait. They wait for the right time to surface, often disguised as anger, fatigue, or numbness. Healing asks for courage. The courage to sit with your discomfort long enough to understand what it's trying to teach you. The truth is, you can't rush healing. You can't skip the steps. You can't pretend everything is fine and expect your heart to follow. Healing takes patience, not the passive kind, but the kind that believes time is not your enemy. Every scar tells a story of survival. Every setback is an invitation to begin again. The process may be painful, but pain is not punishment. It's information. It shows you where you're still hurting, where you need care, and where you've been carrying too much alone. Healing asks you to stop running from yourself and start listening to the quiet voice within. The one that says, I'm not okay yet, but I'm trying. Sometimes healing doesn't come through fixing what was broken, but through accepting that it may never be the same. There is beauty in brokenness when it's held with grace. Like a cracked piece of pottery repaired with gold, the Japanese art of kintsugi, your scars can become part of your strength. You are not damaged, you are refined. What hurt you deeply can one day become what helps you heal others. Pain, when transformed, becomes purpose. And that purpose gives meaning to what once felt meaningless. Healing also requires forgiveness, not necessarily for others first, but for yourself. You must forgive yourself for not knowing better, for staying too long, for being too kind, for not being ready to let go. You must release the version of you that made choices from fear or loneliness. You cannot step into healing while carrying shame like a shadow. Forgiveness is not about erasing the past. It's about freeing yourself from being ruled by it. It's the gentle decision to stop reopening the wound and allow it to close in peace. There will be days when healing feels invisible, when you think nothing is changing, when you're tired of trying, when you question if the pain will ever end. But even in stillness, healing happens. It happens in the quiet moments, when you choose rest over self-blame, compassion over criticism, presence over distraction. Healing is not an event. It's a daily choice to show up for yourself, even when it feels hard. Some days that might mean crying. Other days, it means laughing again without guilt. Every small act of self-care, every deep breath you take, every boundary you set, it's all part of your recovery. It's important to remember that healing doesn't mean forgetting. You don't erase the memory of what hurt you. You change your relationship to it. You begin to see the pain not as something that defines you, but as something that shaped you. It becomes part of your wisdom, not your wound. That's why healing is both an ending and a beginning. It's the end of being controlled by your past and the beginning of learning how to live freely again. As you heal, you begin to notice light returning, softly, almost imperceptibly. You find yourself smiling without forcing it, breathing without heaviness, hoping without fear. You start to realize that healing is not about becoming who you were before the pain. It's about becoming who you were meant to be because of it. The brokenness that once made you feel unworthy now becomes the space through which empathy and understanding flow. You see others differently, love differently, live differently. Healing, then, is not a destination but a rhythm. Inhale, exhale, release, rebuild. You will revisit your pain from time to time, but it won't undo you. It will remind you how far you've come. Every step, no matter how small, matters. Because healing is not about being unbroken. It's about knowing that even in your brokenness, you are still whole. Faith is not always loud. It doesn't always shout with confidence or sing with certainty. Sometimes faith is quiet. A whisper in the dark that says, I still believe. It's the small decision to take one more step when you don't know where the path will lead. It's the courage to trust that even when nothing makes sense, God still does. Faith is not proven in moments of comfort, but in moments of confusion. When the world around you shakes and you choose to stand firm anyway. It's not the absence of doubt, but the determination to move forward despite it. Every test, every delay, every unanswered prayer, they are all invitations to deepen your trust, not diminish it. There will be times when God feels distant, when silence replaces answers, and when hope seems fragile. In those seasons, faith feels less like a fire and more like a flicker, a small, trembling light that refuses to go out. It's easy to believe when everything is working in your favor, but real faith is built when nothing is. When the outcome is uncertain, when prayers seem unanswered, when the night feels endless, that's where faith matures. It's in the waiting that your trust is refined, and it's in the struggle that your spirit learns to stand. Faith is not about having control, it's about surrendering it. It's saying, God, I don't understand, but I trust you anyway. Faith often begins where logic ends. It's believing in what your eyes cannot see and trusting that what feels like a delay is actually divine direction. Sometimes God hides the full picture, not to confuse you, but to protect you from moving before you're ready. You see only a part of the story, but He sees the whole. When He closes a door, it's not rejection, it's redirection. What feels like a setback is often the setup for something greater. The problem is, we're wired to want clarity, but faith rarely gives it. Faith doesn't say, here's the plan. It says, take the next step. And that's enough, because each step leads you closer to what's meant for you. Faith is tested not just by what happens to you, but by how you respond to what happens. Do you panic or do you pray? Do you complain or do you trust? The world teaches self-reliance, to fix everything on your own, but faith teaches surrender. It teaches you to rest in something beyond yourself, to let go of control, and to lean into grace. When you stop fighting to figure it all out, peace begins to rise within you. You realize that you don't have to carry everything, you just have to believe that God will. And somehow, in the middle of your weakness, His strength shows up. Faith doesn't always feel strong. There are days when you'll question everything, even your purpose, even your prayers. But faith isn't destroyed by doubt. It's defined by what you do with it. Every time you choose to trust again after disappointment, every time you show up when you feel like giving up, your faith grows deeper roots. Think of a seed buried in the soil. It looks like nothing is happening, but beneath the surface, transformation is taking place. That's what faith looks like in hard times. You might not see the fruit yet, but the roots are growing stronger every day. Faith also teaches humility. It reminds you that life is not always in your control, and that's okay. You begin to see that faith is not about forcing outcomes, but aligning your heart with God's timing. Sometimes He withholds an answer because the lesson is more important than the result. He is shaping your patience, your character, your endurance. Faith is what keeps you calm in uncertainty, because you trust that His delays are not His denials. You stop asking, why me? And start saying, teach me. And when you do, you begin to see that even the hard seasons have hidden blessings. Faith brings light into dark places. It allows you to walk through storms with peace. Not because the storm is small, but because you know who's in it with you. You learn that faith doesn't eliminate fear. It gives you strength to face it. Every trial becomes an opportunity to see God's hand at work. Sometimes He doesn't change the situation immediately, because He's using the situation to change you. And when you come out of it, you don't just have faith, you have testimony. You realize that everything you went through was not to break you, but to build you into someone who trusts deeper, prays stronger, and believes longer. Faith is not a feeling, it's a choice. A choice to believe when evidence says not to. A choice to hope when hope feels foolish. A choice to hold on when everything in you wants to let go. It's not blind optimism, it's brave surrender. It's trusting the unseen, because you know the one who sees all. When faith becomes your foundation, storms can shake your life, but they can't destroy your peace. Because no matter what happens, no matter how uncertain life becomes, you know that God's timing, God's will, and God's plan are always working for your good. There are moments in life when you look at the calendar of your dreams and realize nothing has happened when you thought it would. You prayed, you planned, you prepared, but the doors remained closed and the answers never came. In those quiet, painful pauses, it's easy to think God has forgotten you. But what if the delay is not a denial? What if the timing you call late is actually perfect in His plan? God's timing is rarely aligned with human expectations because He is not rushed by our urgency. His work is eternal, not emotional. He is not operating according to your watch. He is shaping your life according to His will. When we demand instant results, we forget that God sees the full picture, the past that shaped you, the present that's refining you, and the future that's preparing to receive you. We see fragments, but He sees the whole masterpiece. The reason God's timing feels slow is because He is not just arranging circumstances. He's arranging you. He's cultivating patience, humility, and depth in your heart. You're not waiting for the promise. The promise is waiting for you to grow into the person who can handle it. There's no wasted waiting in God's plan. Every pause has purpose. Every delay carries divine direction. Imagine a seed buried underground. If you dig it up too soon, it won't grow. Not because it wasn't meant to, but because it wasn't ready. The darkness wasn't its prison. It was its preparation. The same is true for you. You may feel buried under disappointment, but you are actually being planted for something greater. God is developing your strength beneath the surface, preparing you for the harvest ahead. His silence is not absence, it's strategy. While you wait, heaven is moving. Angels are aligning circumstances you cannot see, opening doors that you cannot yet reach. What looks like stillness on the surface is divine motion underneath. Think of Joseph's story. Betrayed by his brothers, thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, and forgotten. In prison for years. It must have felt like God's timing had failed. But when the right moment came, everything changed in a single day. The same pit that held him became the platform that launched him into his purpose. God was never late. He was preparing Joseph for a responsibility greater than he imagined. If Joseph had been released early, he might have missed his destiny. Likewise, your waiting season is not punishment, it's protection. God is keeping you from stepping into blessings you are not yet equipped to sustain. When we rush ahead of God, we end up building things that crumble under pressure. Relationships that fall apart, plans that backfire, successes that feel empty, all because they weren't in sync with divine timing. But when you trust God's pace, you find peace, even in the pauses. You stop striving to make things happen and start resting in the truth that if it's meant for you, it won't pass you by. What's delayed is not denied. What's hidden is being refined. You learn to stop measuring time by minutes and start measuring it by moments of growth. God's timing is not about when you receive what you've prayed for. It's about who you become while waiting for it. The process transforms your character. It teaches you how to handle blessings with humility and how to face challenges with wisdom. The waiting season teaches you to depend not on what you want, but on who God is. It draws you closer to Him. And in that closeness, you discover that His presence is better than any promise. Because the truth is, when God finally opens the door, you won't just walk into your breakthrough. You'll walk in with a stronger, wiser, more grounded version of yourself. Sometimes what you call a delay is actually God's mercy. He knows what you don't. He knows that if He gave you what you're asking for too soon, it might destroy you instead of bless you. He's not making you wait to frustrate you. He's making you wait to prepare you. And when His timing finally arrives, everything that once felt impossible will suddenly make sense. The tears, the silence, the confusion, it all becomes clear. You'll realize that if things had happened earlier, you would have missed the maturity that waiting brought. So when you find yourself asking, why is it taking so long? Remember that the God who created time cannot be late. He moves with precision, not haste. His delays are deliberate, and His timing is perfect. Every closed door is leading to a better one. Every setback is setting you up. And every unanswered prayer is an invitation to trust deeper. One day you'll look back and thank Him, not just for what happened, but for when it happened. Because when God's timing finally unfolds, it won't just be right. It will be beautifully right, perfectly aligned with the purpose He has written for your life. Patience is one of the most powerful forms of faith, yet one of the hardest to live out. It's easy to trust God when everything is happening quickly, when prayers are answered on time, and when the path ahead is clear. But true patience is born in the moments when life stands still, when you've done everything you can, and the only thing left is to wait. Waiting tests your spirit. in ways that nothing else can. It exposes what you truly believe, whether your trust is rooted in God's character or in your desire for control. Patience is not simply the act of waiting. It's the attitude with which you wait. It's what you do when nothing seems to be moving, yet you choose to believe that God is. When you're waiting for something, healing, restoration, a breakthrough, it can feel like your prayers have disappeared into the sky. But what you can't see is that patience is working silently within you. It's teaching you endurance, humility, and strength. Every delay is a lesson in trust. It's God training your heart to depend not on outcomes, but on Him. You might not see visible results, but beneath the surface, transformation is taking place. Just like a seed planted in the soil, growth begins invisibly. You don't dig it up to check its progress. You water it, protect it, and wait. The same principle applies to faith. When you trust God's process, you allow your life to unfold in His perfect rhythm instead of your rushed expectations. Patience is not passive. It's an active demonstration of faith. It means waking up each day and choosing peace over panic, gratitude over complaint, and trust over fear. It's standing still on the outside while your spirit remains anchored in hope on the inside. Patience doesn't mean you stop dreaming or stop praying. It means you stop forcing. You let go of the need to make things happen in your own strength, because you believe God's strength is already at work. The greatest test of patience often comes right before the breakthrough. The darkest nights come just before dawn, when it feels like nothing is happening. That's usually when God is aligning everything behind the scenes. You see, patience is not a delay in progress, it's part of it. Waiting refines your vision. It helps you see what truly matters and what doesn't. It strips away distractions, sharpens your priorities, and deepens your understanding of what you're really waiting for. Many times, God uses waiting seasons to prepare your character for the blessings ahead. If He gave you everything you prayed for instantly, you might not have the wisdom to handle it. He withholds not out of punishment, but out of protection. You think you're waiting for the blessing, but often the blessing is waiting for you to become ready. The miracle of patience is that it changes you from the inside out. It transforms frustration into faith, restlessness into reflection, and anxiety into assurance. It's the quiet realization that God's promises are not fragile. They don't expire just because time passes. His word is as strong on the 1,000th day as it was on the first. The longer you wait, the more valuable the outcome becomes, because patience has added depth to your faith. Every day you remain faithful in waiting, you grow stronger in spirit. You learn to find peace not in outcomes, but in presence. The presence of a God who never leaves, even in silence. Patience also brings perspective. What once felt unbearable becomes purposeful when you see how it shaped you. You begin to understand that waiting isn't wasted when it leads to wisdom. Many of the greatest blessings in life are not the ones that came easily, but the ones that required endurance. Patience gives you gratitude for timing. It makes you value what once you took for granted. It humbles you, reminding you that life is not about instant gratification, but divine preparation. You stop asking when and start asking, what are you teaching me? That shift transforms waiting into worship. There's a quiet beauty in those who wait well. They carry peace where others panic. They smile even when nothing changes. They speak hope even when they don't see results. That's what faith matured through patience looks like. Steady, calm, unshaken. It's not naive optimism. It's spiritual confidence. It's knowing that the same God who began the good work will be faithful to finish it, no matter how long it takes. Patience allows you to live with expectation instead of exhaustion. You stop fighting the clock and start trusting the Creator of time. And then, When the moment finally arrives, when the prayer is answered, or the door opens, you'll understand why the wait was necessary. The same thing that once felt unbearable will now feel beautiful, because you'll see how much you grew in the process. You'll realize that patience wasn't just the path to the miracle, it was the miracle. It kept your heart steady, your faith alive, and your hope unshaken. And in the end, you'll know that God was never late. He was teaching you the sacred power of waiting well.